Let's kick off with what Mr. Afolabi was saying there about good government. This was a plan that was made. It was agreed by the Cabinet. Doesn't it look like panic to bin it at the last minute?
Well, no, because it was a judgment made on, frankly, quite a lot of wrong data. They didn't know at the time that by April we'd have the highest inflation rate for 30 years. They didn't know that interest rates would be going up, the council tax would be going up, the fuel prices about to jump by £700 a year for an average family. And therefore, they didn't know quite what pressure there'd be on ordinary people. And after all, the test, if you want to do a test of good government, all policy should pass the test of what's the impact on the ordinary family, what you actually started out with. And what we're talking about is a tax is going to take away about 10% disposable income of those ordinary families. But that's one element of it. But the other part is it's economically unwise. It creates a disincentive to work, either for overtime or promotion, a disincentive to employment because it's going to penalise employers too. It's going to hit effective demand. It's going to hit the growth of the whole economy. It's going to undermine the general tax base as a result, and it's probably not going to raise anything like the 12 billion talk about. In fact, it might even have a negative effect because it shocks growth out of the economy. So it's all very well to talk about good government in terms of orderly decisions and so on. We're in a time of massive change, and we have to be ready to change with it.
It is nevertheless, whatever the precise sum of billions raised, if we accept that there will be billions raised, we know exactly what it's going to be spent on, at least in the first year. Where, if not from national insurance, would that money come?
Well, the second set of numbers, wrong numbers, the government was working on were the Treasury forecasts. And as people like John Redwood and Robert Jenrick and others have pointed out, and some pretty senior economists too have pointed out, they're out by 50 billion or thereabouts. So it's very, very much better throughput in terms of the balance of expenditure is coming
Well, you're just saying we don't need the money.
What I'm saying is, one, this will not deliver the money, and in fact may have the opposite effect to that intended, may cost us money. And two, the forecasts that were made that it was based on have all proved to be way too pessimistic.
But I mean, to be clear about it, you're saying, in other words, that we will be able to use the money that we borrow at the moment to sort out this extra money that we want to spend on social care, etc., and that there is no need for any added revenue measure.
Well, let's go back to the fundamentals. The whole basic strategy behind this is built on some confusions. Number one, we cannot in any single year balance up the impact of COVID. We simply can't. We're talking about hundreds of billions, over £400 billion. We have to treat that effectively like a war loan. So, after the Second World War, we had 250% of our economy in borrowings. Now we've got about 100%. You have to pay that off over 50 years. Then talk about the rest. Now, one of the problems that the Treasury historically has done is it's ignored what's called the dynamic effect of taxes. In other words, if you cut taxes, growth increases and you end up with more money coming in, not less. This tax, national insurance, always sounds terribly popular because people think it's just paying for the healthcare, and it's the one popular tax. Unfortunately, it's the one that does most damage to growth and actually most damage to ordinary families. So, you end up with harming ordinary families, damaging growth.
I understand the point you're making. I just wonder, a lot of people might say, goodness, if Labour were saying the kind of things you've been saying in the last few minutes, they'd be absolutely pillorying.
No, I think one of the difficulties is that the sort of conventional approach of the Treasury and the Bank of England, for that matter, over the last 50 years has more often been wrong than right. The one time we had a Chancellor who sort of overruled them, Nigel Lawson, he turned out to be the best Chancellor of modern times because he was willing to cut taxes in order to get a higher tax take in. The reason Labour wouldn't do it is because Labour always puts taxes up in government, and what I don't want to do is actually mirror what they would do. At the last election, one of the things that came up on every doorstep I went to in all the northern seats around me was Jeremy Corbyn going to put taxes up, therefore I'm going to vote for you. Now, what are we going to do? Put taxes up? What do you think is going to happen to those votes? They're going to evaporate. So for our own political interest, but more importantly for the national interest, we should keep taxes down. We should cancel this national insurance increase.
Talking of political interests, have you put in your letter to the 1922 committee calling on Boris Johnson to go?
No. I asked him to resign. I didn't say I'm going to force that. I'll wait until 3 or 4 days after the Sue Gray report and make my decision at that point.
Do you have a favourite to take over from him if someone, in your view, needs to?
No. This is not about favourites. And let me be plain. I like Boris. I've known him for 30 years, and I supported both of his leadership approaches. One he abandoned, one he didn't. But the truth is that we're now into an issue of trust, and it's going to be very, very difficult to get out of it. And one way to do that is to have a change. But I don't think any of the proposed people that I've seen in the papers so far have got a trust issue.
I don't understand, though. Why is it that you called in the Commons for him to resign, but you're going to wait until after the Sue Gray report? You presumably, by calling for him to resign, you already know what you think you need to know in order to ask for that to happen.
I think it's pretty likely I would want him to go, but I'll wait for those few days. Look, the issue here, the reason I called him to resign is at the moment he has a legacy. He has a legacy of having delivered Brexit. He has a legacy of having brought us through the pandemic. He has a legacy on the world-leading vaccine operation. If we carry on, as we may do if we're not careful, month in, month out, sort of death of 1,000 cuts, that'll destroy Boris's reputation for all time and actually do huge damage to the Conservative Party. And while we're at it, distract the government at a time when you've got things like the Ukraine crisis underway, you've got the crisis with France in the Channel underway, and so on. I want it resolved quickly, one way or the other, so we can put this behind us.
David Davis, thank you.